Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Ritter is here with us today. What's up, Scott?
How you doing, Craig? Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you on, man. It's always it's very hard to find anybody who has your insight and your point of view because you've been doing this for such a long time. So the reason why I asked you to come on today is that our good friend Volodymyr Green Screen Zelensky is running around Washington, D.C. at the UN Council asking for more money. Here we got Zelensky presented a peace settlement for Ukraine, and it says, for the complete withdrawal of all Russian troops and military formations, including the Russian Black Sea Fleet, or those leaky troughs that will remain from it during the war, as well as the withdrawal of all mercenaries and quasi-military formations of Russia from the entire sovereign territory of Ukraine within our intentionally recognized borders of the 1991 year. This is crazy, Scott. What they're saying is that, and I like the way they kind of word this to kind of hide up their own bullshit, any of the mercenaries.
Yeah,
the quasi. They're referring to Wagner, right? Because, you know, we have Blackwater, so they have Wagner and whatnot. What are your thoughts on this initially right here? I mean, is this really logical whatsoever? I mean, this is never going to happen. It's like they're presenting something that they know the Russians will never, ever, ever do, including getting their fleet out of the Black Sea and Crimea. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, what Zelensky is presenting is nothing other than a restatement of the American position. The American position is that Russia is in Crimea illegally, and that Russia has illegally annexed the four territories that comprise what is known as New Russia, Novaya Russia, the Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Lugansk. And so if that's the American position, and America says we're supporting Ukraine until the end, until they get what they want, it only makes sense that Zelensky, when he's in the United States, passing around the tin cup, looking for more money, he echoes this. The problem for Zelensky is that when America formulated this policy back in 2022, the perception in the West was that Russia was having a difficult time. And therefore, it wasn't total fantasy to postulate the possibility of Russia acknowledging defeat and withdrawing from the territories. At that time, the West was seeking to strangle Russia with economic sanctions. But these sanctions were designed to cause the collapse of the Russian economy, cause the Russian people to rise up against Vladimir Putin, and hopefully, from the American perspective, remove him from power. And once Putin's removed from power, the hope was that the new Russian government, which would be modeled, hopefully from the American perspective, along the lines of Boris Yeltsin, a compliant stooge or tool of the United States, would say, oh my goodness, everything we've been doing in Ukraine is wrong. We're going to withdraw to the 1991 borders, not because Ukraine was able to militarily defeat them, but because Russia suffered a political collapse. That's been the goal of the United States since day one, to achieve the political collapse. Newsflash, it ain't happening. Vladimir Putin, and I just got back from Russia, and I'm here to tell you, 26 days, 12 cities, Vladimir Putin is more popular than he's ever been. The Russians are more united behind him, and in a sort of a stark change from at the start of this conflict, Russia is united behind the conflict. You know, when Russia first went in and initiated the special military operation, there were many Russians who were saying, hey, why are we doing this? What is the necessity of doing it? No one asks that question anymore. They know exactly what's at stake here. This is a war of existential survival. The collective West is seeking to destroy Russia, and they're using Ukraine as a proxy tool to achieve that objective. Russia would never, ever go along with this, and the West knows it. This is why the same day that Zelensky is presenting this ridiculous plan for peace, German officials have come out, not Scholz, not their foreign minister, but other officials have come out and said, look, Ukraine has lost this war. They're not going to win it. If we continue to go down this path of supplying them, Russia is going to not only defeat Ukraine, but probably be in a position to defeat NATO. We don't want that. We need to end this conflict. Therefore, their plan is to have an immediate ceasefire, to freeze the conflict where it is, and then to have the United Nations, the Secretary General, take over negotiations to bring an end to this conflict. and this is the interesting part, because if you remember, NATO, the United States, Zelensky, and everybody else has said taking NATO out of the equation is not possible, that the door will always be open. Yeah. But the Germans now are saying, and to ensure that Russia is secure in the knowledge that Ukraine will never join an alliance that could be seen as threat, meaning they're shutting the door on NATO. Yeah. Now, Russia won't agree to all that, but I'm saying it's a sharp departure. The new German negotiating position is a sharp departure from that which Zelensky is articulating, and more reflective of reality.
You know, I think when it comes to Germany, there's more than just like NATO getting defeated. I think the fact that, you know, them not being able to do business, you know, energy-wise with the Russians is really hurting their economy. So that's why you hear some of those echoes from the bleachers. But I want to kind of ask you one question in particular, what you just said over there, right? I used to say that when it comes to the United States foreign policy apparatus, when it comes to the, you know, the imperialism, the spreading empire, that the United States doesn't care who wins the war. They don't care who loses the war. They just care that they have the war. Therefore, the military-industrial complex, which controls a lot of our, you know, Congress, can make that money hand over fist. Was it ever really logical in their mind that they could actually have? I know for people like Lindsey Graham, Scott, they probably believed that regime change was possible in Russia, but the foreign policy apparatus, did they really believe that Russia would be, you know, buckling and crumble to their knees and they could have this change and, you know, have regime change within Russia? Was it a believable thing, or was it just more important that they had this proxy war?
No, I think they actually believed that they were going to be able to bring Russia to its knees. And what's interesting is that many in the Russian government were afraid that sanctions could bring Russia to its knees. One of the reasons why Vladimir Putin didn't declare war, why he didn't mobilize up front, was concerns that the Russian public, subjected to sanctions, wouldn't be in the mood for additional economic constraints brought on by general mobilization and things of that nature, that there could be widespread unrest that could lead to domestic pressure that could put Putin at risk. And so, you know, they went in with the special military operation with the army as it is, without mobilization. Putin's advisors were telling him that, you know, he could expect a 25% constriction of the Russian economy. That's a lot. And so Putin was walking on eggshells on from a domestic political position up until September, October of 2022, several months into the war, when it became clear that the sanctions weren't working, that Russia did have a response, that the sanctions were backfiring. And it was at that juncture, once that clarity became certain, that Putin then said, we're going to do the partial mobilization. Give me 300,000 men now. Because now he knew that Russia was behind him, that there wasn't going to be this. But even Putin's people believed early on that there was a political risk there. So it's not unrealistic for American policymakers to believe that the sanctions could have had such an impact.
I would think that they would automatically, a light bulb would go off in their head and say, you know, this might be counterproductive. It might actually empower Putin, you know. And we've talked about this on my other shows before, Scott, when I have asked you, what choice did not just Vladimir Putin, but the Russian Federation have to go in there as they were upping the bombing, you know, with all these Ukrainians, with the Azov battalions on the people of Donbass. And it looked like a lot of people in Russia were very critical of Putin dragging his feet. Even Yanukovych, when he was fleeing the country, was saying, hey, man, you're going to have to get involved because they've armed all these Nazis, and these Nazis are going to terrorize the Russian-speaking people of the Donbass, and you're going to have little kids hiding in their cellar as they're bombing, you know, these areas.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Tampa, Boca Raton, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Bloomington, Illinois, Indianapolis, and Levittown, New York. Wow, that's a lot of dates. See you there.